Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Sports Central. Today, we're going to be going over my Week 6 UFL power. Starting off by briefly recapping Week 5, the Showboats upset the Stallions, winning 24-20. The Battlehawks beat the Panthers 32-27. The Defenders knocked off the Renegades, winning 37-33. And the Roughnecks destroyed the Brahmas 27-3. But getting into this week's rankings, kicking things off at number 8 or last, I've got the Brahmas. So the Brahmas fall to number 8 after they were destroyed by the Roughnecks, losing 27-3. And the Brahmas, they were awful on both sides of the ball. Their offense was awful with just 3 points and 118 total yards. And the Brahmas, they need to figure out the quarterback position. Because quarterback Kellen Mond, who I thought would be really good, he has been terrible so far. And he was actually benched midway through this week's game. And then backup quarterback Jarek Guanatano, I don't really think is much better. And he struggled this week, going just 6 of 15 for 29 yards and an interception. And together, the two quarterbacks for the Brahmas combined to go 10 for 24 for 64 yards and 2 interceptions. But I really don't think either of those quarterbacks are the answer for the Brahmas, and both those quarterbacks play pretty bad. But the Brahmas, they need to find the answer to the quarterback position, and I definitely think that can help their offense because they got a lot of playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, just not a quarterback. Then defensively for the Brahmas, they were also terrible. They allowed 27 points and 273 total yards. And this game was just an all-around awful performance for the Brahmas. And it's really weird for the Brahmas because they were starting to show some improvement in their close loss to Michigan and then their upset win over DC. But apparently not, because now they're 1-4 and at the bottom of my power rankings. Coming in at number 7, I've got the Showboats. The Showboats move up a spot to number 7 after they upset the Stallions, winning 24-20 in overtime. And it was a great game, and it was actually the first ever overtime game in UFL history. And the Showboats, they got in the win column for the first time this season. The Showboats offense played their best game of the season by far, and they found themselves a quarterback. Dresser Wynn made his first ever professional start, and he was great. In his first pro completion, he threw a 78-yard touchdown to D. Anderson, and Dresser Wynn finished the game, completing 58.6% of his passes for 235 yards and a touchdown. And Wynn should definitely be the Showboats quarterback moving forward. The Showboats, they were also solid on the ground, averaging 4.2 yards per carry, and receiver D. Anderson, who had the big 78-yard score, finished the game with 4 catches for 93 yards and a touchdown. Then the Showboats defense, they were pretty good. They never really let the Stallions get going offensively. And they also forced a turnover. They did let the Stallions back into the game late, but then they got a few stops in overtime to seal the win. The Showboats, they also had a big special teams play with a kick 6 right before halftime, as Isaiah Henney returned a missed field goal 108 yards for a score right before the half. But the Showboats, they look pretty good in their first win of the season. They're now 1-4, and I've got them at number 7 in my power ranking. Number 6, I've got the Roughnecks. So the Roughnecks remain at number 6 after they destroyed the Brahmas, winning 27-3. And the Roughnecks, they played really well. Offensively, they had a season-high 27 points, and quarterback Jalen McClendon had another nice game, as he finished the game going 22 of 32 for 171 yards and an interception. And he also made some nice throws that were called back, but I think his game was actually even better than his stat line may suggest. The Roughnecks, they were also good on the ground with 106 yards and 2 scores, and receiver Justin Hall also had a good game with 9 catches for 68 yards. Then on the defensive side of the ball, the Roughnecks were dominant. They allowed just 3 points and 118 total yards of offense. They also got 4 sacks and forced 2 turnovers. But the Roughnecks, they looked really good in their win over the Brahmas, and they've very quietly won 2 of their last 3 games, and they're only 1 game back in a playoff spot in the USFL Conference. But the Roughnecks very quietly looking pretty good. They found themselves a quarterback, and after a great win over the Brahmas, I've got them at number 6. 5th, I've got the Stallions. The Stallions fall to number 5 after they lost to the previous win with Showboats 24-20 in overtime. The Stallions, they never led in this game, and they definitely didn't play their best game. The Stallions, they did come back, scoring a game-tying touchdown 25 seconds left, but they couldn't get the win in overtime. And offensively, the Stallions, they did not look right. They were playing with their third-string quarterback in Case Cookus, and I do think he's pretty good for a third-string quarterback, but he didn't play that well. He completed under half his passes for 145 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, although he did have a good game on the ground with 83 rushing yards. But even though Cookus definitely didn't have his best game, I don't think you can put this entire loss on him. Because the Stallions' defense also didn't play well. They allowed a season-high 24 points, and they just couldn't really stop the Showboats from moving the ball, as the Showboats averaged 6.5 yards per play. But this was not a good game for the Stallions, and after falling to the Showboats 24-20, They're now 3-2 on the season, and they dropped to number 5 in my power rankings. Fourth, I've got the Panthers. So the Panthers enter at number 4 after they lost to the Battlehawks 32-27. The Panthers, they get off to a slow start, trailing 17-6 at the half and then 20-6 early in the third quarter. But then the offense got going, as the Panthers, they took the lead with about 7 minutes left in the game, just for them to give up the lead 2 plays later. But the Panthers offense, they actually played really well, scoring 27 points and getting 400 yards. But this game was another example of why the Panthers should only be playing Bryce Perkins at quarterback and not playing Danny Etling. As Bryce Perkins finished the game going 21 of 25, 235 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Danny Etling went 4 of 9 for 59 yards and an interception, and that pick was a big interception late in the first half that led to a Battlehawks touchdown. But Bryce Perkins, he is clearly the much better option at quarterback, and everyone can see that except Mike Nolan. But outside of the quarterback position, the Panthers, they had a pretty good game. They ran the ball effectively with 113 yards and 2 scores, and they had 2 receivers play really nice games, as Salesi Mariner had 6 catches for 111 yards, and Malik Turner went for 8 for 71 and a touchdown. Now, the Panthers' defense wasn't amazing, allowing a season-high 32 points, and they struggled to stop the run, allowing 126 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. But the Panthers, they still played pretty well offensively, and I still think this is a very good Panthers team, and despite the loss to the Battlehawks, I still have them at number 4. Third, I have the Battlehawks. The Battlehawks move up from number 5 to number 3 after they got a big win over the Panthers. And this is a much-needed win for the Battlehawks because they had dropped 2 straight games coming into this week, and they looked a lot better. Their offense was great with 32 points, and quarterback Max Duggan made his first start of his pro career, and he played pretty well. He only attempted 12 passes, but he completed 9 of them for 124 yards and a touchdown. And Duggan was also great on the ground with 70 yards and 2 touchdowns on 10 carries. And it really seems like the Battlehawks did a really good job offensively playing to Max Duggan's strength. The Battlehawks offense also looked entirely different now that Hakeem Butler is back from injury, and Butler had a big game with 2 catches for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then on the defensive side of the ball for the Battlehawks, they weren't great, allowing 400 yards and 27 points, but they had a big stop late in the game to seal the win, and after a much-needed win for the Battlehawks, they're now 3-2, and very much in the playoff race in the XFL, and I've got the Battlehawks at number 3. Second, I've got the Renegades. The Renegades come in at number 2 after they lost to the Defenders 37-33. And this is a game for the Renegades that they should have won. They led by 15 late in the first half, and they were up by 11 early in the fourth quarter, but then they were outscored 15-3 in the fourth quarter and turned the ball over twice and ended up losing the game. But the Renegades offense played pretty well. They had a great first half of 27 points, but only scored 6 in the second half. Quarterback Luis Perez played pretty well with 268 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, and the Renegades were great on the ground with 108 yards and 2 scores on 5.7 yards per carry. Then on the defensive side of the ball, for the first time this season, the Renegades did not play well, as they allowed 37 points and could not stop Jordan Teamu, who had 4 touchdowns. But this is a tough loss for the Renegades, especially when you consider it's a game they probably should have won. But they're still a very good team, and I've got them at number 2. And coming in at number 1, I've got the Defenders. So the Defenders, they reclaimed their top spot in my power rankings after they got a big bounce-back win, beating the Renegades by a score of 37-33. And as I said before, the Defenders, they trailed big in this game. They were down 27-12 late in the first half, and they trailed 33-22 in the fourth quarter. And coming back from being down 15 is actually the largest comeback win in UFL history. But the Defenders, they played really well, especially offensively, as they had 37 points, which is the most any team has scored yet this season, and quarterback Jordan Teamu played a good game, as he threw for 308 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception, and also added 37 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So a 4-touchdown performance for Jordan Teamu. He was pretty good, and even though I've been pretty hard on him so far this season, he did play a pretty good game, although, as usual with him, there is a little bit of bad mixed in. But Teamu, he was a big reason the Defenders won this game. Now, outside of Jordan Teamu, the Defenders, they didn't run the ball too effectively, which is 59 yards, but they were still decent, and they actually had 3 receivers play big games, as Chris Rowland went for 67 yards and a touchdown, Braylon Sanders had 81 yards and a score, and Cornell Powell had 89 yards and a touchdown. Now, defensively for the Defenders, they weren't great, especially in the first half, allowing 27 points, but they were great in the second half, allowing just 6 points. They got some big stops late in the game, including forcing 2 fourth-quarter turnovers, which includes the game-sealing interception. But the Defenders, they beat the Renegades in a great game. They're now 4-1, best record in the UFL, and I've got them at number 1 in my power rankings. But those are my week 6 UFL power rankings. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn notifications. I do my best to post as often as possible, and I will see you in the next video.